watching Market Cafe on ET Now with me, Shreyansi Singh and Cheryl D'Souza. And over the next 1 hour, we'll take you through news and updates from within the country as well as across the globe, tell you which stocks you should keep on your radar and tell you what the brokerages are saying as well. But first things first, Cheryl, good morning. We should take a look at the US markets then.
Absolutely. A very good morning to you, Shreyansi. And let's take a look at what the US markets have done, because we have a very flattish handover coming from the US markets. If we talk about the way how it shut shop, at least on Friday, it was a flat close coming in for Dow, for S&P 500 as well as Nasdaq, where both of S&P 500 and Nasdaq actually saw a decline, while Dow actually ended the positive territory, and also it hit a fresh record high level on an intraday basis. But what's good to note is the fact that they had a very strong closing for the week. So for the week, if you look at the way how Dow actually saw good sharp gains, you had Dow that ended the week higher by about 1.6% gains. You had S&P 500 that ended week higher by about 1.5%. Ditto coming in for Nasdaq as well. So strong close coming in for the US markets for the week. But if you look at Friday, it was a very flattish move coming in. Also remember that now they have a lot of Federal Reserve commentary coming in, where the market has now fully priced in a 25 basis rate cut come in November, while you have about 48% of the views coming in that they're expecting a 50 basis point rate cut coming in November as well. So now all the focus has gone on how much is going to be the quantum of rate cut in the coming meetings. You had Fed Reserve Governor, that is Michelle Bowman, who said that they maintained that a smaller Fed cut this week could have rather been preferred. And after these commentary coming in, you had some gains being paired by the US markets. Let's talk about what happened to Nike. It actually jumped about 6.8%. This after they said that the former senior executive Elliott Hill will rejoin the company to succeed John Donahoe, who is as the CEO. So on back of that, there's strong gains coming in from Nike, and that also added to the gains coming in for the Dow Jones.
Well, absolutely. And let's also take a quick look at what oil prices did and what gold did. There's a lot happening in that space. When you take a look at oil prices, you're looking at them settling lower, but also recording a second straight week of gains, garnering support from a US interest rate cut as well as a dip in US supply. So when I'm looking at Brent futures, there's a downtick of about 39 cents of 0.5%, 0.5% there coming in. $74 a barrel is where that one was at. And when you take a look at US WTI as well, you're looking at a downtick of just about 3 cents or 0.4%, and $71 is where WTI was also at. Now, signs of a slowing economy in major commodity consumer China is something that gave prices ceiling. But for the week, both benchmarks settled up more than 4%. Prices have recovered after Brent fell below $69 for the first time in nearly 3 years on September 10th, and that's the kind of handover that you have for oil. But when you take a look at gold, that is the one that is shining really bright, because gold soared above the $2,600 per ounce level on Friday for the first time, extending a rally boosted by bets for further US interest rate cuts as well, and rising tensions in the Middle East that also spurred some safe haven demand coming in for gold. You did, of course, have that Federal Reserve fillip that also aided gold prices. Now, prices of the safe haven asset, of course, have climbed 26% this year, its biggest annual rise coming in since 2010. And this is, of course, as investors also sought to hedge uncertainties that are spurred by prolonged conflicts in the Middle East and elsewhere. So that is something that we're definitely keeping an eye on, Cheryl.
Absolutely. So that's all about the way how the gold market also fared. But let's move on then. And US President Joe Biden hosted leaders from Australia, India and Japan for a quadrupling summit, strengthening the joint security measures in the Asia strategic waters. The nations announced a joint Coast Guard operations and increased military logistics cooperation amidst growing concern about China's intentions. In a joint statement, they condemned the coercive maneuvers in the South China Sea, sending a strong message to Beijing. And this marks a significant shift in the Quad's focus towards security issues ahead of Biden's departure from office.
Alright then, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met top tech CEOs in New York on day 2 of his US visit, discussing opportunities in AI, semiconductors and biotech. Key leaders from companies like Google, IBM and Adobe also joined in. Modi also highlighted India's semiconductor progress, mentioning 5 approved units, and predicted made in India chips in the US as well soon. Modi also addressed resilient semiconductor supply chains, praising collaboration with global foundries On day one, he also participated in the Quad Summit. And today, of course, he'll be speaking at the UN Summit of the Future before returning to India. Listen into a slice of what he had to say then.
हर बार पिछला रिकॉर्ड तोड़ देते हैं। साथियों, मैं हमेशा से आपके सामर्थ्य को, भारतीय डायस्पोरा के सामर्थ्य को समझता रहा हूं। जब मेरे पास कोई सरकारी पद नहीं था, तब भी समझता था और आज भी समझता हूं। आप सब मेरे लिए हमेशा से भारत के सबसे मजबूत ब्रांड एम्बेसडर रहे हैं और इसलिए मैं आप सबको राष्ट्रदूत कहता हूं।
All right, shifting focus, my colleague Siddharth caught up with Vikas Khanna, the Michelin star chef, from the sidelines of the PM's visit or the meet with the Indian diaspora. Let's hear out what he had to say.
And I think PM being such a figure for all of us, who is like an elderly family member, I just feel that we all connect to that. We salute that and we bow to that because that is such a big representation of who we are as Indians. And it's our unifying forces that how we're unified in this moment is going to define our structures and also our strength and our success.
When the Prime Minister was here almost 10 years ago, he had a reception at the Waldorf Astoria, and you prepared a very interesting palette of 26 different cuisines representing 26 different states of the Indian Union to capture our unity in diversity, so to speak. What was the thinking behind that? Tell us a bit more about that, and tell us about the diversity of the Indian palate, the challenge of Indian cooking that the people here in the United States perhaps might be still exploring, because Indian cuisine is not as generic as it's made out to be. Each state has its own uniqueness, its own feature when it comes to diversifying that Indian palate, so to speak. Tell us about whether or not the nuances and intricacies of the Indian taste have been registered by Americans here in their experience of tasting Indian food over an extended period of time.
बहुत ही मुश्किल सवाल है ये, because I feel कि Indians, like most of us, we do not even understand our own state, different state cuisines.
बिल्कुल.
How do you expect a Westerner to understand our cuisine and culture?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest questions, the most important questions I get asked all the time is that, how do you define Indian food? Instead of answering back, I give them a question, how do you define European food? Like, India is much more complex than entire Europe as a continent. And this is just a country. And I feel that बहुत मुश्किल है to expect that the Western people will start knowing this immediately. And most of us, while I'm a chef all the life I've cooked, how many cuisines can I tell from within Italy? So we also stereotype Western cuisines in the Western countries. So we have our favorites and we go for that.
Okay.
But we need an Italian chefs to come and educate us, introduce us to new favorites. वही मेरा job है. One dish at a time, I say, one palate at a time, and one restaurant at a time. This is my funda, that you stick to it and slowly you spoon feed people with new dishes every single day.
Alright, then that's the word coming in from Chef Vikas Khanna, who's won the Michelin star not one, not two, but 6 times. But moving on, then Vice President Kamala Harris takes the lead. A recent NBC News poll shows her 5 points ahead of Donald Trump, with 48% viewing her positively, a significant jump coming in since becoming the Democratic nominee as well. Trump's ratings remain steady at 40% though. Other polls, including CBS News as well as Reuters, Ipsos, also show Harris ahead, signaling a tight November 5th election.
Then tech giant TSMC as well as Samsung are considering massive chip factories in UAE worth about over $100 billion. This is according to reports. The top executives have visited the country discussing projects funded by the Abu Dhabi's Mubadala, as well as the move aiming to boost global chip production as well as reduce prices. This move also comes amidst the concerns in Washington about the advanced US tech reaching China through the Middle Eastern partners.
Alright, then moving on, a massive deal could be brewing in the tech space in the US. According to reports, Apollo Global Management is offering as much as $5 billion for stake in chip major Intel. Remember, this deal would be coming amid slowdown for Intel, which has lost about 60% of its market value this year alone.
And Hezbollah is retaliating against Israel's Patriot attack and airstrikes with a barrage of missiles at the military base near Haifa. The Lebanese militant group hasn't clarified if any of the rockets had hit their target. This is what the local reports have said. And they said that the rockets shot from Lebanon were intercepted in Haifa and Nazareth.
Alright, then time for a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at how the Asian markets are faring, so you don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned in. Well, let's take a look at the Asian markets as promised then, and we're looking at a mixed open at this point. When you take a look at Hang Seng on your screens, Nikkei of course is closed. Markets in Japan are closed for a public holiday. Let's also take a quick look at what Hang Seng is doing currently. 0.6% uptick is what you're seeing for Hang Seng, in the green. And let's also take a look at Shanghai. That one is also in the green. Let's see what exactly that is doing, and that is up about 0.4% on your screens as well. When you take a look at Kospi as well, you're looking at a shade of green coming in for that one as well, but not doing all that much. 0.1% uptick is what you're seeing there as well. ASX 200 on the flip side is in the red at this point, though a downtick of about 0.8% coming in for that one. Now, of course, the Reserve Bank of Australia is going to be starting its two-day policy meeting today, and that is something that we'll be keeping a very close eye on, because they will be coming out with the country's monetary policy path decision tomorrow, and that's the one to watch out for. But currently, ASX 200, the only Asian index that is not doing all that well, downtick of about 0.8% coming in for that one. Now, of course, back home, we shut shop around the 25,790 mark, and currently what is being penciled in is a rather good start that we're keeping on our radar this morning at least.
Absolutely. So that's the way the Asian screen is looking like at this point in time. But let's take a look at what you should watch out for come 8 a.m. because we will have a power pack lineup for you through the next 3 hours. If you look at 9:20, we will have Mark Matthews talking about the street and which side of the fence should you bet on, given the fact that the markets have been scaling a fresh record high day after day. After that, we will be joined by the management of REC. We will have Vivek Kumar Devangan, who is the chairman as well as managing director at REC, to talk about the recent renewable energy MOUs as well as the path going ahead for REC. Apart from that, we will be talking to Narayana Health Management to understand their growth outlook. Where are they seeing the healthcare industry proceed from here on? And after that, we will also have the management of Al Cargo Group joining us to talk about the roadmap coming in for the logistics sector.
Well, absolutely. So that's a power pack lineup for you right there. But welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned in. Well, let's get you some more news and updates, and on to an ET Now exclusive. Then, a key player in the educational loans industry is planning to go public. HDFC Credila has begun initial talks with bankers to discuss the plan forward to list the company's shares. Now, private equity firms EQT and Chris Capital had acquired a 90% stake in the company from HDFC Limited just ahead of the mortgage lenders' merger with HDFC Bank last year. In fact, we have Anurag Joshi who's standing by with more details. Anurag?
HDFC Credila, which is a key player in the educational loan industry, has started sounding out bankers for a potential IPO. Now, sources have told ET Now that the discussions with investment banks is at an initial stage, but the plan for the company is very clear that they are looking to do an IPO. And also the owners, the current owners, EQT and Chris Capital, they own a controlling equity stake in the company, and they are working on listing the shares of the company. EQT and Chris Capital had entered as investors in HDFC Credila just ahead of the merger of HDFC Limited, which was India's biggest mortgage lender, with HDFC Bank in July 2023. Most of the regulatory clearances for the merger have come in place earlier this year, and also there's another key investor, Shinhan Bank of South Korea, that entered as an investor with an 11% stake in HDFC Credila.
All right, the RBI released a September bulletin in which they highlighted a slowdown in the global economy, but the cool-off in headline inflation and revival in rural demand was aiding the domestic economy. That's what they highlighted. My colleague Anjali is here to tell us more from that report. Anjali?
Let's take a look at what the RBI has said in its September bulletin. Good news first. Vegetable stock prices have begun to reverse, and this is good news because the persistence of food inflation, which was a major cause of concern for the RBI, may be behind us. In other good news, local drivers, private consumption and gross fixed income have been robust. The household consumption is also expected to grow faster in the second quarter. Rural demand growth has sustained, and this has led to the headline inflation easing. Talking about the equity markets, benchmark equity indexes have risen, and the outlook for RBI will remain bullish. The August CPI number has been below RBI targets, and this is the second month in a row. This also improves the prospect of the CPI averaging at 4.5% in the second half of the year, which is obviously something that the RBI is hoping for. On the downside, the disinflation pace has been sluggish, and this has provoked some caution amongst monetary authorities. Additionally, more needs to be read into the slowing down of the Indian economic growth than just disappointment, the RBI said. And lastly, the September CPI reading needs to be read with caution because it will have an unfavorable base.
All right, thanks Anjali for that lowdown coming in on RBI's September bulletin. Let's move on then, and it's another ET Now news break. Confirmed Maharashtra Housing Minister tells ET Now in an exclusive chat that the government is planning to slash stamp duty in real estate before the festive season. In fact, let's go across and listen in to a slice of that conversation then.
Our government earlier, like in COVID period, had given concession to the stamp duty, and because of that we got more revenue and lot of registration. The housing department, there was a good response from all the stakeholders, all the builders, and that's why we had given that time in COVID. Same thing, we are planning to give some discount so that we get more revenue from this registration.
You're planning to give, because the festive season is coming and after few days, a model code of conduct would be applicable. So can we infer that before that you're planning to give some sort of discount?
We are discussing with the revenue department. Definitely once the revenue department and housing department come together and decide it, we'll be able to do it. But already as we have given 1% discount to the women's for ladies, because so that if there's some house has been taken in the name of the wife or sister or mother, they get a 1% discount in that.
So you're giving 1% discount to women and they may get more before in this upcoming festive season. Yeah. You are working on that proposal, sir. Yes. So one more thing, I just want to understand that in Mumbai, the real estate is the most costly real estate of the country. And one of the reason is the premium charges. So is there any plan to reduce the premium charges?
As we said, we are coming up with a new housing policy, and definitely we will be trying to reduce, because that is everywhere whenever we go for any conclaves, there all the stakeholders always say that there should be reduction in premium. So definitely we'll bring in our new housing policy, we'll try to reduce the premium.
And sir, what is the latest update on your new housing policy? By when we can see, and how much work has been done on the new housing policy?
Housing policy is already been completed. Only all the departments together, because it has to be decided by all UD, housing and all put together. So I think we will be able to finalize in next 15 days that.
All right. Alright, so that was the Maharashtra Housing Minister talking about the likely relief coming in for stamp duty. But what does this actually mean for the home buyers? My colleague Anurag Shah has broken this entire thing down for us to explain it to us.
Maharashtra government is going to give relief to home buyers in this festive season. Maharashtra government is likely to reduce the stamp duty charges before the model code of conduct kick in. We have seen that in times of COVID during FY21, government reduced the stamp duty rates by 2% and 3%, which got a great response. In 1 quarter only, more than 90,000 units were registered. So on the similar lines, to increase the revenue and to give the relief to home buyers and developers, the government is likely to reduce the stamp duty charges because in a city of Mumbai, where the property is the costliest in the country, so presently there is a 6% stamp duty which include the 1% metro cess, so any reduction will be beneficial for home buyers. Other than that, a major development in the real estate sector is that in next 2 weeks, government is likely to announce the new housing policy which will reduce the premium charges also. So that is also a positive for real estate sector because the various premium charges only make the real estate costlier, and in the new housing policy there will be a reduction in premium charges also, which will be a relief to home buyers.
Alright, thanks Anurag for that update coming in on what that really means and that explainer. But time for a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at some more stock specific news, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned in. Well, let's get you some more stock specific update, and let's start by getting you the list of stocks that you should keep on your radar bright and early this morning. Jinay is standing by with just that list. Jinay?
Well, yes, HDFC Bank will be the first stock to keep your watch out for, as company has given approval for the initial process of IPO of HDB Financial Services, and this is with a fresh issue of aggregating about 2,500 crores. Moving on, KEI Industries will be in focus as company successfully commissioned commercial production of LV-MV cables at the new plants in Rajasthan. Moving on the back of order wins, BHEL will be in focus as company bags order worth around 6,100 crores from NTPC. This is for thermal power project, and KEC International wins about 1,000 crores orders for their various businesses. Moving on the back of US FDA inspections, first Dr. Reddy's will be in focus. US FDA has completed inspection at the R&D facility in Hyderabad and issued the inspection with 0 observations. Moving on, Glenmark, US FDA has issued Form 483 with 0 observations after inspection of the formulations facility based out of Aurangabad. And lastly, Biocon will be in focus as US FDA has issued 3 observations after inspection of an API facility based out of Bengaluru.
Alright, thank you so much for that, Jinay, for outlining the stocks that are in focus on back of the news flow. But which are the stocks that have been focused on back of brokerage note? Gaurav is standing by with that list. A very good morning to you, Gaurav. And which are the stocks to watch out for?
Well, yes. Let's begin with Indus Towers first, because Citi has now maintained its buy rating at a target price of 500 rupees on this stock. What they say is that the recent dip is actually an opportunity for buyers to buy in Indus Towers, and the reason being that the quantum of past dues for Vodafone Idea can actually increase in Q2 FY25, but at the same time, if you look at the dividend yield of 6 to 7%, now Citi believes that is an attractive, given that the valuation of Indus Towers is at a attractive level. Next we have is Glenmark Pharma once again, and now Investec has maintained buy rating at a target price of 1900 rupees on this stock, and they have also initiated fast long on this stock. The reason being that they expect earnings momentum as well as the cash flow generation to actually improve from here on. They also believe that the Aurangabad facility with 0 observation is actually a good thing for company. And lastly, they also see Glenmark's India as well as rest of the world business increasing at an exceptional pace. Apart from that, let's also watch out for Chola Finance, because Investec has now upgraded the rating to buy, and they have also hiked the target price to 1850 rupees, because what they believe is that the loan growth is not a concern for the company. There are certain levers which will help the company to maintain ROA. When we talk about buffers, they are limited for the company, but at the same time, they are expecting Chola Finance to outperform the sector, and as a result, we have seen that they have hiked the target price to 1850 rupees. So definitely watching out on all these counters on the back of the brokerage note that you have received today.
Alright, thanks Gaurav. So those are the counters that make it to brokerage radar this morning, but ICICI Bank will also be in focus on the back of commentary coming in from their management meet. Then Citi has gone ahead and hiked the target and maintained the buy stance. Gaurav, tell us a little more about that as well.
Well, yes, Citi met with the management of ICICI Bank and now they have maintained their buy rating but also hiked the target price to 1547 rupees versus what it was at 1464. And the reason being that management have now said that the growth momentum is likely to sustain to mid-teens and this will be led by business banking, MSME and corporate loans. Apart from that, bank has also highlighted that they have comfortable LCR ratio of around 123% and LDR ratio of 85%. Other than that, they believe that the NIMs are going to be range bound at least in Q2 FY25 and we may see a little moderation that we have seen in the past trend as well. Lastly, they also believe that they are going to focus on the cost efficiencies. OPEX growth is going to get slowed down and that is the reason why we may see some increase in the profitability for the bank. And as a result, we saw Citi has now hiked the target price to 1547 rupees after management meet. So definitely watching out on this counter on the back of the price hike that we are seeing from Citi.
All right, thank you so much for that, Gaurav, for outlining that as well. Apart from ICICI Bank, you also had M&M's management that met Goldman Sachs as well as BofA, and commentary coming out from both of these brokerage firms on Mahindra & Mahindra. What they're saying that XUV 700 is more affordable variant supporting the profit growth for the company versus the recent strategy of only focusing on high-end trims. They believe that the battery-operated EVs, that BEV, will become the launches in that segment will be profitable from day one onwards. What else is the management hopeful of? One is that there's improving validation on the Inglo EV. In some cases from other OEMs as well, they've got a good validation for that sort of a platform. They're saying the green shoots are now more visible in the rural markets, but it's not come back to those rosy levels that it has seen in the previous cycles. Apart from that, they're saying that the tractor market setup is looking better heading into the H2 of the financial year. They believe that the Thar Rox test drive will be opening in mid-September, already opened in mid-September, and is seeing good level of interest coming in from consumers. Export plans are starting with Australia, South Africa as well as Chile, and global pickup in the truck market as well. They're fairly positive on the growth outlook in the second half of the FY25, and also management has reaffirmed the FY25 guidance of about 5% year-on-year growth for tractors and mid to high teens growth coming in for their SUV business. So management sounding pretty positive on the growth path going ahead at least, and that's what Goldman Sachs and BofA has highlighted, Shreyansi.
Well, absolutely, and let's move on and let's get you some important commentary coming in then. With an impending macro slowdown in the developed economies of the world and the dollar on a weakening trend, what does this really mean for the commodity space? Well, market guru Chris Wood believes a weak dollar augurs well for the commodities pack. But let's also go across and listen into what he then had to say about not just the commodity space, but also the long-term India equity story.
Commodities, and it's interesting in many ways that the commodities have not been weaker given how the very depressed data out of China. So I think another key variable for commodities will be the dollar, and my bias is that the dollar has commenced a weakening trend. The dollar is already down quite significantly from all-time highs against Asia and emerging market currencies. It's down quite significantly now against sterling. A lot of people were looking at the dollar vis-a-vis the yen, but even there it's now down a bit. So fundamentally, I think the dollar has begun a weakening cycle, and a weaker dollar is positive for commodities. So on a 5- and 10-year view, I still believe India is the best stock market opportunity in the world. On a short-term view, India is not going to be the short-term flavor of the month because we've begun a Fed easing cycle, and the other emerging markets, such as Brazil, is a good example, who are more geared into declining U.S. rates. In my relative return portfolio, where I'm running portfolio on a relatively short-term tactical basis relative to the benchmark, I'm running India marginally above neutral, and the key reason for that is that India's neutral rating has increased dramatically, which is also why we believe global emerging market investors are now a little underweight India. But in my long-term or my more long-term orientated global portfolios, I have much bigger weightings in India. So my Asia ex-Japan long-only portfolio, which is about 25 concentrated stocks, I'm still nearly 50% invested in India. So this neutral weighting is just a tactical call, given we've got very high valuations.
All right, let's then move on and let's get you some headlines in the global markets. Anurag Kumar Dissanayake has become the president of Sri Lanka following a historic runoff elections. The Sri Lankans went to the polls over the weekend to elect the nation's 10th president, marking the first election since the devastating 2022 economic crisis that led to a loan default. And Bangladesh's interim government has withdrawn its ban on the export of Hilsa fish to India and announced that it will export 3,000 tons of Hilsa during the upcoming Durga Puja festival, which will be taking place from October 9 to the 13th. Bangladesh earlier this month imposed a ban on Hilsa exports to India to ensure sufficient domestic supply. And British rock band Coldplay on Sunday added a third show to the Mumbai leg of its Music of the Spheres World Tour 2025, citing phenomenal demand hours after fans expressed disappointment over long virtual queues on the online booking ticket platform that's bookmyshow.fans. The ones who could not get a ticket did try for January 21st tickets as well, but that sold out within minutes. And Netflix India is under investigation for alleged visa violations, racial discrimination, as well as tax evasion and other business practice irregularities. The investigation, which has not been previously reported, adds that the growing scrutiny of the streaming giant's operations in India, the crucial growth market for the company.
Alright, then moving on to the political landscape, Delhi Chief Minister Atishi Marlena is all set to take charge as Delhi Chief Minister today. Now remember, Atishi was picked as the leader of the Aam Aadmi Party Legislative Party 2 days after Arvind Kejriwal announced his intention to resign from office. Moving on then, Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister N. Chandrababu Naidu has announced the formation of a special investigation team, SIT, to probe allegations regarding the adulteration of Tirupati Prasadam, specifically the famed laddus offered at the Sri Venkateshwara Swami temple. Moving on then, double delight coming in for Team India at the 45th Chess Olympiad. Both men and women's teams clinched maiden gold medals to script history. The men's team defeated Slovenia while the women's team beat Azerbaijan.
Alright, and with that, we're totally out of time on this edition of Market Cafe. It's a goodbye show from Shreyansi, myself, and the team that put the show together. But stay tuned, the market is coming up next.
If you like this video, then like, share, and subscribe to ET Now.